Welcome to the first edition of Brewing Headlines Chaiwali Edition, your chai-filled progress report on key stories impacting the South Asian community. I'm your co-host, Vinamrata.
And I'm your other co-host, Preeti.
Before we go into the episode and the great content that we have for you today, or even introduce a little bit more about ourselves, I want to tell you a little bit about why we started this podcast and what you can expect from us going forward. Preeti and I started Brewing Headlines because we felt like there was a strong lack of underrepresentation in the media, in the overall podcasting community, and we really wanted to take this opportunity to spread the stories of South Asians from a South Asian voice and really tell you a little bit about how these stories are impacting our community. Therefore, every month, we're going to bring you our take on 2 stories from the past few years that have impacted our community and really go into exploring how they're going to impact us going forward in 2021. And we want to do this through a combination of combining cold hard facts, #NoFakeNews, personal narratives, and interesting guest speakers for us to dive deeper.
Keeping with this, our podcast is going to be structured in 2 parts. The first will be bringing you the problem, the main issue that our community is impacted by. And the second part will, of course, look into how is this going to get better in the upcoming year? How can we get into this issue and make it better together as a community? And on this episode, we're going to introduce ourselves first as co-hosts and then dive into our main topic, brown women v. brown women. Why do Indian women often compete rather than just cooperate with each other? With that, let's kick off intros and maybe a fun factoid about ourselves.
That sounds like a great idea. So for those of you who don't know us, my name is Vinamrata, as I said, or V. I am a product manager working in the tech industry, and I really love chai, all kinds of chai. I guess that's like the only fun fact that I could think of while we're recording this episode at this moment is just love for chai.
My name is Preeti, as I've said before. I'm a data analyst working in the tech industry. From the Bay Area, I haven't really left my hometown except to go to college. And I guess that's one of my fun facts.
That's a much funner fact than I love chai like every other brown person in this world.
I feel like there are a lot of brown people that don't like chai anymore, and that's kind of sad, actually.
Wait, really? So you legit know someone who doesn't like chai and is a brown person? Because I feel like that's a heresy in the brown community.
I agree. I mean, they're like, oh, coffee is just so much more refined than chai, which is just milk. I guess if you're listening to this and you don't like chai, you should just drop off the call right now.
I mean, we call ourselves the Chaiwalis. This episode has like Chaiwali in the name. It's in our logo. Like if you don't like chai, like you should really leave. Wow, this is a very hostile way to start a new podcast. I'm gonna do a little switcheroo on my energy right now.
Let's rewind. So V and I actually have met in high school. It's just why we've known each other for so long during an event called Speech and Debate, which is an extremely competitive, I guess, extracurricular activity to meet your best friend, especially since you're going to be competing against them.
I think maybe this is why I have so much negative energy right now, because I'm just having like so many flashbacks to our time in Speech and Debate. It was with like high school and growing up and like college admissions, and it was just like all of the stresses of the world compounding in one person. I think that's why I have this energy today. But on the bright side, I met Preeti, and even though we lived in completely different parts of the country at that point, like I was in Houston, Texas, Preeti was in the Bay Area, we still like maintained our friendship even after we graduated high school, graduated college. But the most important part of that story is that Preeti and I's friendship has really withstood the test of time, despite everything that we have been through together. And I think a big reason for that is because even though we were in this like super competitive activity and environment of high school, college admissions, debate, we never felt super competitive with each other. And, you know, even though like I have felt that competition with other women in our lives, I don't think I've ever felt that with you.
Yeah, me neither. And I think that's kind of one of those things that they tell you about, you know, in the workplace now that, you know, we've grown up and we are in the workforce, that like we just have to like treat women as, you know, partners and people who help you grow and succeed, and instead of, competitive people who are trying to like get ahead of each other. That's really not the space for it. And I think that that's the basis of our friendship, right? Is like we're here for each other. We're here to help each other learn and grow. And yeah, all that competitive stuff can just go out the window.
Totally. And it's interesting that we used like this topic to start off the podcast, but we really wanted to start here because kind of what Preeti was saying about that it's really the foundation and basis of our friendship, but also like, we're entering 2021 or I guess already in 2021. Wow, like time is such a strange concept. And the beginning of every new year is a chance to get rid of your toxicity of the past year for a lack of a better word. So it feels like, talking about competition and fostering healthy attitudes between women and sisterhood feels like a really good place to start.
Yeah. I mean, I think a great place where this kind of blows up in everyone's faces is in media coverage, right? Where you just see reporters comparing actresses or models. It's even in politics, right? When, we see a younger Democrat compared against an older Democrat, and it's obviously only women who are like really, really like stigmatized in this arena, right?
Totally. Yeah. I love rap music like to death. And I hear this all the time because there aren't a lot of women in rap. So it'll be like, Cardi versus Nicki Minaj, or Megan Thee Stallion versus Nicki Minaj, or Megan Thee Stallion versus Cardi. And I love it when female rappers collaborate together and open, especially Cardi, and like talk about the fact that this attitude comparison is just super, super toxic and not helpful, because I think it brings light to this issue in, kind of all aspects of media coverage.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think even like in Indian media, you see this a lot. I think every time, like Miss Universe or Miss India comes around, everyone is just like constantly comparing like really old Miss India universe and Miss Universes to like the current generation. And it's like you can't compare people from like the 1970s to like 2010s because like body image has changed, like politics and things that they would be talking about on their platforms have changed, like culturally everything has changed. And I just think that like that's just such a thing that happens everywhere for women, but I also feel like mostly for Asian women it's like any flaw that we have that's like different from somebody else's just gets like blown up, right?
Yeah. And I hate to be the Sigmund Freud here, but I really think going back, if I think about this in areas that have happened, in areas where this has happened in my life, it kind of always goes back to parents and culture. Because I think, like I was saying earlier, like parents just enforce this stereotype and method of comparison as soon as we're born. I just feel like it's so much more prominent in the South Asian community. And I think especially as a woman, like there is just, besides like the achievement aspect, because hashtag brown parents, hashtag achievement driven, hashtag not shocking. um there is so many hashtags. Get used to it, guys. It's gonna happen. There's just this emphasis on feminine traits that you as a woman are supposed to constantly exhibit, that you have to be very docile and you can't talk back and you can't express your opinion. And I think this is like further reinforced through comparison with other women, whether it's your cousins or, my parents would often talk about, random people's children, like coworkers' children or something, and being like, wow, like so and so's daughter is just so, we met her and she was so great. Like she brought us chai, she like gave us snacks, she like sat down, she tried to have a conversation with us, she like, laughed when she like was supposed to. And it just makes you feel shitty if you don't necessarily want to do any of those things at that point or want to behave in that way.
Yeah, I feel like at that point, it's like that's your definition of love for yourself for other people too. Is like you're like, oh, I only love people who are successful and driven. And then all of a sudden, you're like, friendships and like even like the way you react with your like colleagues is like, if you're not successful, then like I don't necessarily want to hang out with you, is something that I've seen in the Bay Area. But then it's also like, the other way around, like for me personally, when you like see someone more successful than you, it's just like this like really really like innate thing that comes out of you that's just jealousy, and it comes out of nowhere, right? Like, and that's like the first reaction that you have. Even if your parents aren't even in the area, you're like, I can't believe this person is more successful than me. I have to compete. I have to be better than this person. And if you ever like stop to think about why, there could be no good reason, you know? It's like this person is so successful in like a marketing atmosphere. I'm not even in marketing. Like why? Like why am I trying? Why do I care about this? You know, like that's just something that like I think will it takes a really long time to break out of.
So, speaking of jealousy, one thing I've really noticed about myself is that I often get jealous of people that have the same goals as me because I think that there's only place for one person at the top. And it doesn't make any sense at all. Like this is definitely not a rational thought. But I think this is especially prevalent if that person looks like me or is like me, like if it's another brown woman, I'm like, oh, like it's gonna be one of us at the top. This is like making me feel really insecure about myself and it's like tied into my parents' love, like deep down in my subconscious. So like of course I have to like fight and like come back and like, be super insecure about it. This actually happened to me in the workplace pretty prominently. A couple years ago, I was working at the startup as a PM, and I thought that for a while I was the only person the youngest person at the company who had achieved this like career milestone. And I was like, really excited about it. And I feel like in a lot of ways, it was tied to my sense of self and self worth in a way that was probably kind of unhealthy. And then we had this other person start at the company who was at the same age, and she either achieved the milestone at the same time as me or maybe even slightly faster than me. And we had become really good friends as a result of working together. So when she did achieve it, I was one of the first few people she told. And my first reaction was just jealousy because I was like, oh, here's another woman who's achieved the same thing. I thought I was the youngest woman to do this and the youngest person, period. Like, that makes me feel not good about myself. Like, what is my sense of self now? And I like talked to my therapist about it and I like journaled about it. And then eventually, this is like very much a woman story. We were getting our hair done for the holiday party together. And I told her, I was like, look, like there's been something on my mind. I've been really jealous of this accomplishment of yours because I thought I was the youngest person to do it, but now I'm no longer the youngest person to do it. But this is stupid. But I just wanted to let you know. I know. This is like a scene out of Legally Blonde or something. I don't know. I'm somewhat not proud of this story given how stereotypical it sounds, but yeah, like we had a great conversation about it, and she talked about the times when has also felt insecure or jealous of other women when it doesn't really make any sense. And we talked about that it's more important for us to support each other and support women and take that energy into that because like tech is a hard industry for women for a lot of different reasons, and there were no senior female leaders for us to look up to, and we're like, if one of us is progressing in her career and achieving milestones, like that gives hope for all of the other women who are behind and, gives us hope and a way to uplift each other. And we should support each other in doing that rather than being jealous of each other and undermining each other's success because that holds every woman back. And it was a beautiful moment of friendship and womanhood and all of these like fuzzy warm feelings, but also like confronting your own biases as a woman.
You know, I mean, all of that was really wonderful and so brave. And I think like there's so much you could take away from that. But something that I really loved is that when you were mentioning your story and you were like, oh, it's so stereotypical of like Legally Blonde. I'm actually not mad about that. Like I want this to be like more of a stereotypical type of conversation between women, you know? I feel like a lot of media is all about us like tearing other women apart. Like Indian dramas are all about like you enter a family and then like everyone's trying to tear you apart as like the new woman entering this family. Or I feel like even like a lot of TV shows, like they just make it so hard for you to like get along or like see other people get along on TV. And so you're just like, oh yeah, this is just a thing in like human nature, like you enter the workforce and you just have to like cat fight it out, And like that's just like that's not necessarily true. And I wish there was more content like Legally Blonde or, like the telenovela like Jane the Virgin, where it's just about like women supporting each other and none of that cattiness. And like if someone is catty, we like give them that space, but also like give them that room to, grow into someone who's not catty anymore, right? And like show them the path forward rather than constraining everyone into these boxes.
Yeah. I feel like especially in Bollywood, it's just so bad. It's either like, there's a drama, like every like fucking Indian, like Kabhi Sasti, Kabhi Bahoti, like all of these like Indian soap operas, like it's like every single episode there's this dynamic between the mother-in-law and the new daughter-in-law, or like the two sisters, or like literally every woman in the family does not like the other women for the most part, and it makes no fucking sense at all.
It seems like we can't rely on Bollywood or any media to provide examples of what good relationships look like between brown women. We'll definitely have to find this guidance elsewhere. But before we get there, let's take a quick break with some chai at Chai Corner.
Welcome to Chai Corner, our segment where we take a bit of a break from the main theme of our episode to get to know you, our listeners, a little bit better. And the way we do this is Preeti and I come up with a question during every single episode that we think is interesting, both for the audience to learn about us, but also for us to learn about our audience. And we'll ask each other the question, but then also pose it to you, the listener community. And we're going to kick it off by answering the question ourselves, so that you can get to know us. And then either in the following episode or on Instagram, we're going to share answers from some of our listeners, so you can get to know them as well. And so I'm going to kick off the Chai Corner this time. And my question is for Preeti right now, but also to our listeners. What's your favorite female duo growing up, especially in Bollywood or other kinds of Indian media?
That's a pretty tough one for me, mostly because I didn't grow up watching quite as much Bollywood. So I'll probably talk about something that came from South Indian cinema, specifically Tamil cinema, which is Aishwarya Rai at Tabu from Kande Konde Kande Konde. Actually, a lot of people don't know, but Aishwarya Rai made her start in South India cinema before she moved to Bollywood. So I especially like this duo because this film was the Tamil take on Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility, which is one of my favorite novels. And in Sense and Sensibility, it's all about like these two sisters really supporting each other and, helping each other grow, supporting each other's careers as they kind of wade through like all the BS that comes along with the marriage market. What's yours?
So first of all, apologies. I feel like I should have asked that question in a more inclusive way. This clearly shows our Indian divide, me being North Indian, Preeti being South Indian. So apologies to all my South, East, West Indian friends that maybe didn't resonate with the Bollywood focused theme of that question. But my answer is going to be Bollywood specific because, I grew up watching a lot of Bollywood. I'm actually going to go with Nana and Sweetu from Kal Ho Na Ho. So this is like, Nana is Preeti Zinta. I don't know the actress who played Sweetu, but like to me, they were just super fun. And I think even though sometimes, especially Nana would be like Preeti Zinta's character would be very disparaging towards Sweetu, who was a plus-sized person, shall we say. I felt like for the most part, they were pretty supportive with each other, and they just had like a fun chemistry that was fun to see on screen. So that would be my answer.
When did Kal Ho Na Ho come out? Like, how old were you, do you think?
I think it came out in like 2003, 2004. So I was pretty young. I don't want to reveal my age, so I'm not going to say how old I was exactly because, keep people guessing. Maybe that'll be revealed on a future Chai Corner segment, but not on this one. Yeah, let me tell you my age, where I live. No, none of that.
Your social security number.
Just give all of my personal information away to the internet.
Yeah, so if you feel like you have an answer you're really passionate about, or even if you just want to answer this question, feel free to drop us a voice memo with your thoughts and we'll play it for future episodes.
Yeah, so drop us a line. Looking forward into 2021, and this is a big theme of what we try to do in our podcast, is kind of forecasting the future. I think the question to ask ourselves is, how might we channel less of this, competitive energy, especially against women, but into something that is more productive? To me, the true meaning of sisterhoods, of women lifting each other up.
I think what you had keyed in on your earlier story, where you just kind of reflected amongst all your relationships with other women, and then you were like, yeah, I am jealous. And you admitted it not just to you yourself, but like to her as well. And I think that is really the biggest step, is just accepting that, it's okay that this is a part of who you are, but that doesn't have to define who you are for the rest of your life. As cheesy as that sounds, I think, personal reflection for me, I went to an all-girls school, I joined a sorority, just had a lot of women present in my life. And I think about, I have a lot of female friends, and how come I can make it work with them? And why can't I make it work with other people that I just come across, in my daily life sometimes? And I think like those types of reflections where you just really dig into your relationships with the really successful like pieces of your life, like this friendship I've had for 18 years, or this friendship I've had for 2 years with this young woman is like amazing. Why? And just like look for the data analyst in me is coming out. Look for trends. What else do you think would be helpful advice?
Once you've acknowledged, like, in my opinion, that's not enough. Like, you have to take some kind of action towards fighting against this. So in the story I shared earlier, it was, confronting coworker, not even confronting, but just confessing really to the coworker about what was going on. Yeah, I think what you said about reflection is definitely the first step. And I think another thing that helped me was a reframing in my mind, of, instead of being like, the goal being, how can I be the first woman to do XYZ? Instead, I think it's more helpful to say, how can I change the game such that multiple women could achieve XYZ? And this reframing actually didn't happen during that time in which I was like talking to my coworker friend. I actually really internalized this during Kamala Harris's VP speech when she accepted, when they won, not when she accepted the nomination, but when they actually won the election. And she talked about, I may be the first woman in the office, but I'm certainly not going to be the last. And the implication being, her being a trailblazer in this means that other women are going to now have the opportunity to step up. And I think that was like, oh, like, even though she has like achieved this very big milestone that, women like Hillary Clinton couldn't necessarily achieve, she's not focusing on that. She's focusing on the people who are going to come next. And I think that's the important thing, is like, oh, how can other women achieve this career milestone? So I think that's such a helpful reframing for me.
Yeah, I would say like in all of my previous careers or companies that I've worked at, I think the thing that's highlighted for me in terms of like why I've been so successful is it's just like I've been in a lot of meetings where it's just women in the room, and women, chose me to be a part of a project, to be their data analyst, or, other women managers have like reached out to me to like solicit my advice on like things that are happening in the company, or like how like, they could be better as a manager or a mentor. And I think that's the type of people that we should aspire to be as well, not just like getting to a manager position or getting to a point where you're mentoring so many people, but always consistently asking for that feedback and helping other people get to where you are is, I think, really, really important.
It's funny you talk about having all these meetings with women. I don't have that in tech at all. I think maybe it's happened like once in a blue moon or something. But I think this sort of reminds me of another way I think we can make a dent on this issue. Another step we can take is forming squads and leaning on each other for support. I know squads have gotten a lot of bad rap in the media. Like, people are like, oh, like, there's a squad of these women. Like, oh no, like, what's going to happen? Like Taylor Swift squad or whatever, which I think is sexist within of itself, but that's a topic for a different day. But think about like the AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilana Omar, and Ayanna Pressley squad, like the freshman women of color Congress, like the congressional women that were elected in like 2018, I guess. And that squad is like so powerful, right? Like they have not only achieved legislative work together, but AOC talks a lot about how, that squad has helped her through some real emotionally challenging parts of her job where I think she, because of her position, especially is vulnerable to. And everyone has just been so incredibly supportive instead of being like, oh my God, like, why is AOC getting all the spotlight? So I think that's just like so helpful and powerful having that community of women, and I think that also kind of helps with the reframing. And I think if I go back to the question that we asked in the beginning of like why you and I haven't fallen into this dynamic, I think this is a big reason why. It's because you and I and a friend S have a squad.
Yeah, I think we've like unintentionally done all the work that we needed to do to like make sure that our friendships aren't competitive. I mean, like all of our circles, we all have like mutual friends. We all have work that could totally overlap, right? Between like consulting and tech and health tech. And it it's pretty cool that like we have an all brown squad in a sense, because I think there's just a lot of things that we can't talk about and share with, other people. Not that like, the BIPOC type of community isn't inclusive, but there are just some things that are just very, very specific, I think, to being South Indian or South Asian, that you just need a small group of people to like lean on and support you. And I think all of us have such diverse backgrounds, even within the Indian community, right? Like, I think that's something that we don't really talk about a lot. It's just how diverse India is. And I think it just adds more color and variety to our conversations. And I always feel like I take away something every time we all come together and chat.
Yeah. And to your point, it's like it's very uplifting, right? Like I remember like the squad that we have. We're not gonna divulge the name of the squad because I don't think it's appropriate for the airs. But it's Preeti, I, and a friend S, who we're gonna call her S. That's not actually her real name. And every time one of us has been upset or going through some like really intense shit at work, like we just immediately reach out to each other for support. And I feel like I have definitely gotten a lot of support from that community and group. And I think we're all like kind of very honest with each other in terms of like the things that are going on in our life. And I think that helps too, right? In terms of maintaining the power of that squad. Yeah. You don't have to maintain this facade of like having your shit together. It's like, okay, like I do not have my shit together today. Let's talk about it.
Or this month or this year.
Yeah. Yeah. 2020, not a year when most people had their shit together at any point.
I feel like as we grow, and like this type of squad is so important to continue to like make us more in tune with like the realities around us and call each other out on our BS, as we grow older and are like more stubborn and set in our ways. I feel like these are the types of groups that we could really rely on to make sure that we're constantly evolving and like changing our perception with the times, and being more inclusive of other people too.
Totally. And I think this goes to another step that people can take and also general society can take, which is just having more content that features stronger female leads against fighting the stereotype. So all of the stuff we talked about before where, it's like mother-in-law and daughter-in-law fighting, or like mom and daughter fighting, or two friends competing against each other. Not really having that happen anymore. Jamila Jamil is a great example of like calling out BS in the media when it happens, when like, the news story is portraying certain women as competitive with each other. So I think all of that stuff helps, even if it's not directly like content production that's enforcing it in that way. Even just calling it out on Twitter or social media, I think is a great way to continue to advance that conversation.
I'm really grateful that we have our mini squad, and really happy for our friendship over the years.
Me too. I'm grateful for you as well. I wish I could give you a hug, but I guess a virtual elbow five, given the COVID times, is going to have to suffice.
Virtual elbow five. Thanks for tuning in. We really hope you enjoyed that segment of Brewing Headlines.
As Preeti and I mentioned earlier, this podcast is our baby. We've been working super hard on it throughout all of 2020, which is a whole episode within of itself. But we're so excited to go on this journey with y'all, and we are just it brings us so much joy, and we love working super hard to bring you this content and our take on jazzy and thought-provoking stories with obviously a lot of references to chai, because chai is great.
What we said before, if you don't like chai, yeah, definitely get out.
Chai, chai, chai.
Yeah, so if you like this episode and the vibe, please subscribe whenever you can, and stay up to date with our future episodes.
Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, like, we got you covered.
We even have an Instagram. It's at Brewing Headlines, so you can always follow us there as well to learn about our new episodes and maybe even hear from other members of our listener community.
You can also always DM us on Instagram. We love to talk to our listeners one-on-one. We'll post some really fun Insta story polls, all of the different ways in order to give you the content that you deserve going forward in 2021. So please follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our show, and leave us voice memos. We love hearing from you. We love hearing your voice. Makes you feel like a real person talking to other real people, which, we need in 2020 given the pandemic.
If you have ideas of like cool stories from the past couple of years that you want us to talk about, or if you even want to be a guest speaker, definitely let us know.
With that, thank you for listening, being on this journey with us today. And we hope to talk to you soon with another key story from Brewing Headlines. Until then,
Chai Wali out.